Good morning. Today is Tuesday, the 15th of August, and today is my daughter Rachel's birthday. So if you're on Facebook and have her on there, make sure to wish her a happy birthday. But today we are in Ecclesiastes chapter 2. We're going to be looking at verses 12 through verse 26 today. Word of God says, Then I turned myself to consider wisdom and madness and folly. For what can the man do who succeeds the king? Only what he has already done. Then I saw that wisdom excels folly, as light excels darkness. The wise man's eyes are in his head, but the fool walks in darkness. Yet I myself perceived that the same event happens to them all. So I said in my heart, as it happens to the fool, it also happens to me. And why was I then more wise? Then I said in my heart, this also is vanity. It's empty. For there is no more remembrance of the wise than of the fool forever. Since all that now is will be forgotten in the days to come. And how does a wise man die? As the fool. Therefore I hated life, because the work that was done under the sun was distressing to me. For all is vanity and grasping for the wind. Then I hated all my labor, in which I had toiled under the sun, because I must leave it to the man who will come after me. And who knows whether he will be wise or a fool? Yet he will rule over all my labor in which I toiled, and in which I have shown myself wise under the sun. This also is vanity. Therefore I turned my heart and despaired of all the labor in which I had toiled under the sun. For there is a man whose labor is, with wisdom, knowledge, and skill, yet he must leave his heritage to a man who has not labored for it. This also is vanity and a great evil. For what has man for all his labor, and for the striving of his heart, with which he has toiled under the sun? For all his days are sorrowful, and his work burdensome. Even in the night his heart takes no rest. This also is vanity. Nothing is better for a man than that he should eat and drink, and that his soul should enjoy good in his labor. This also I saw was from the hand of God. For who can eat, or who can have enjoyment more than I? For God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to the sinner, he gives the work of gathering and collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God. This also is vanity and grasping for the wind. Not a lot there to make you feel all warm and fuzzy. Solomon, in his wisdom, is expressing repeatedly over and over again that temporary things do not bring lasting fulfillment. All the work, all the toil of his hands, everything that he's built, he's going to die and leave it to someone else. And who knows if they'll be good stewards of it, take good care of it, appreciate it. most of the time we see, historically anyway, that people who are given things don't necessarily take good care of them. But if you have to work to earn something, you know that it has an increased value for you. So, what is the point of what Solomon is saying? When you read a passage like this, there's really such a broad spectrum of possible applications specific to the individual. I mean, he's talking about his heritage, what he's going to leave to his children, and he's talking about all the things that he's done, and who's he going to pass it on to? Will they appreciate it? And several times he says, all this is it's like grasping at the wind. You can't take hold of it. There's nothing. All that can be summed up by saying this: you've never seen a U-Haul following a hearse. In other words, you can't take it with you. And that's really his point. And as he works through each of these inquiries, it says he gave himself to know pleasure. He's given himself to know to have many possessions. And here he says he's given himself to wisdom and knowledge. And some people, that's what they do. It seems they constantly learn but never come to a knowledge of the truth. They constantly learn, but in the end, what does it gain them? Can you pass your knowledge on to others? Can you make them apply what you've learned? Any parent knows that that's very challenging. When your kids hit those magical preteen and teenage years, all of a sudden they think you don't know anything, like you never lived a day in your life. As I mentioned, my daughter, today's her birthday, and I remember those teenage years, but I'm just thankful that she loves the Lord and she's serving God. And when if you read the end of Ecclesiastes, that's exactly what Solomon concluded, that at the end of the day, the only thing that matters is to know God and honor Him forever, because that's the only thing that has a lasting value. I believe it was Jim Elliot, martyr in Ecuador, who, after he died, they found written inside a book that he was reading, or maybe inside his Bible, I'm not sure, this little saying: "He is no fool who loses what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose." Another, just a profound truth: he is no fool who loses what he cannot keep to gain what he cannot lose. And I think that's what Solomon's getting at here, is that constantly striving for the things you cannot keep is like grasping at the wind. So what's the application? How do we apply this to our life? Is there any sin for us to forsake? I've heard it put it this way. I've often put it this way as well. We need to invest our time, our talent, and our treasure in eternal things. And the only things in this world that are eternal is the Word of God and the souls of men. Everything else is temporary. It's grasping at the wind. Everything else will turn to dust. But the soul of man is eternal, and the Word of God is eternal. So to invest your time and your talent and your treasure in those two pursuits is wise. So to be investing our time and our talent and our treasure in temporary things is unwise. Now, that's not to say that we don't plan for the future and we know that we have to live. I mean, that's not what I'm saying. But things need to be in balance. Our pursuits can't just be for temporary things. Our affections need to be for eternal things. Jesus said, set your affections on things above, not on things below. He said in the Sermon on the Mount, seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness, and all these other things will be added unto you. Matthew 6:33. So anything that's out of balance in your life, forsake that. Principles to apply. Well, I think I've just stated what the principle is. The principle is that everything that's not eternal that you're striving for is like grasping at the wind. He says that 2 or 3 times in that passage we just read. Investing our time and our talent and our treasure in things that are not eternal, probably not the best use of our time and talent and treasure. What about examples to learn from? Well, he is our example. Solomon says, look, who has gained more than I? Who has more possessions, more wisdom, more property, who's accomplished more than me? And I'm sitting here telling you that it's vanity. It's all vanity. Learn from his example. Heed his words. Is there a command here to obey? Well, there's not a command from God that I read here in this passage. But he does say that, verse 26, he says, for God gives wisdom and knowledge and joy to a man who is good in his sight. But to sinners he gives the work of gathering, collecting, that he may give to him who is good before God. I think the command is that kind of what Jesus said there in the Sermon on the Mount. Seek first the kingdom of heaven and his righteousness. And just trust in the Lord to take care of your needs. What about anything to be thankful for? I'm thankful in this passage for the wisdom of God. I'm thankful for the Spirit of God who enlightens us, who illuminates us, who speaks to us from his word. I'm thankful for God saving me and God calling me into the ministry and for the life of service that I've been blessed to be able to serve him. And my prayer and my hope is that one day I'll stand before the Lord and hear him say, well done, thou good and faithful servant. And I'll be able to take all the crowns and lay them at his feet. I'm just thankful for the Word of God and for the truth of God and for just giving God being gracious to me. That's all I have for today. I pray that at the end of the day, my life isn't just grasping at the wind, but that one day I'll be able to stand before the Lord and not be ashamed, be able to lay my crowns at his feet. Have a blessed day. We'll see you again tomorrow.